Good morning, Chicago Cubs fans. We are back with another edition of Cubs Daily. My name is Steven Ryan. We're going to talk about a couple of upcoming free agents, a couple of different names that maybe we should think about as Cubs fans, and I think the front office should think about signing. We're going to continue our series with grading the Cubs, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how the Cubs youth is going to drive decision-making this offseason specifically. But before we get into all that, I just want to give everyone a big thank you, all of you who continue to watch the videos, those who have subscribed to the channel, and dropping the comments down below. I love reading your guys' thoughts, hearing about them, whether the opinions are agreeing with me or differentiating with me. I love to hear it, so please keep it coming. And if you are new, please feel free to share your thoughts. It's an open forum in the comment section, so let's hop right into it. So the Cubs have a lot of free agents. The Cubs don't have a lot of free agents. There's not a lot of holes to fill per se on this roster. We know we are potentially losing Kyle Tucker for the 2026 season. It's really tough to convince, front office management to maybe be going all in on 2026, especially with what the Dodgers will be returning this next year. And we know the Brewers are going to be tough. We know the Phillies are going to be good. The Braves should probably have a bounce-back season as well. They just had a lot of injuries this year, so we know the Braves are better than they are. I can't imagine the Mets being much worse than they performed. They kind of performed at the lower end of their potential. But, just a name that I kind of saw out there as a free agent, and maybe you kind of, are taking from one of these other teams by adding him to your team is JT Realmuto, okay? JT Realmuto has been one of the top 5 catchers in the game for most of his career, okay? He is a good defensive catcher. He's a catcher that can hit and run really well. Now, again, the caveat with him is he is 34. He is going to be turning 35 in 2026. And, if you look at the Cubs' numbers as a catching unit this year, we really didn't do all too bad. I would give the total catching grade, unit a grade of an A. But again, it's kind of hard to plug and play, to develop that, syncrasy with the pitching staff that you really like to see from, having at least one catcher. Now, obviously, you can't just have one catcher. You're going to need 2. Someone's going to have to relieve the starting catcher. But, I've just kind of thought about it and been like, hey, would the Cubs be open to a 1-year deal with Realmuto? Because I think that would actually really, really fit the construct of the 2026 team. I think the Cubs want to have a lot of open books by the end of 2026. They don't want to have too much commitment to players because they are anticipating a lockout, right? I think we're all anticipating a lockout at this point. I think they don't want to have as much money on the payroll. They want to keep labor as cheap as possible, especially if they're not going to be driving in revenue for the team, right? I mean, that kind of just makes good business sense in the sense. But I know as fans, we are not about the smart business that the Cubs make. We want tangible results on the field. That's why I'm posing this as an option, right? JT Realmuto, he could come to the Cubs on a 1-year deal. Maybe, not necessarily prove it because we know how good he is. But again, you don't want to commit to someone who's 35 years old for the long term. But maybe they can give him a nice splash signing, like 1 year, $25 million. Can come in, help be a part with the pitching staff, give us some really good offensive numbers. Because again, I'm saying this, ladies and gentlemen, Carson Kelly had his career year last year. I don't know if that's happening again. I'm going to be frank. I don't know if that's happening again. Reese McGuire as the third catcher did really, really well. I don't know if that's happening again either. Now, Miguel Amaya, the jury's out. The jury's out with Miguel Amaya. He was hit by injuries. We're going to talk about him later in this video, grading the Cubs. I like Miguel Amaya. I know it doesn't sound like I'm saying I like Miguel Amaya, but I actually do like Miguel Amaya. I just don't know the extent of his injuries. He's been kind of career bitten with these injuries. He had a major injury in the minor leagues. Last year, he had a big injury that knocked him out for a very, very long time, and then he only got to play 1 game, and he was injured again. So I'm not sure what the results with Miguel Amaya are. Maybe the front office knows something that I don't. But in the short term, in the interim for the 2026 season, maybe, just maybe, signing JT Realmuto could, provide a spark for this Cubs offense, get us back to where we were in October, right? And on the doorstep of potentially going to the NLCS, and maybe just put us over the top. Because, again, our season ended with the Carson Kelly ground out. And I think, I'm not trying to be harsh when I say this, but you don't win in the postseason with spare parts. Okay? Plain and simple. Carson Kelly, most of his career is known as a spare part. He has a career 7.6 WAR. 3.6 of it came this season. You saw the Milwaukee Brewers, right? In that second round, you saw how Andrew Vaughn totally combusted because he's not him. He was him for 3 months, the hottest 3-month stretch he ever had. He's not him. Caleb Durbin, he's a rookie. He might grow a little bit more, but he's not there yet. You just don't win with these spare parts. You need tangible star players to have results in the postseason, okay? I'm sorry. It's just plain and simple. And we're not going to win until that is the case. You look at every team that's in the World Series and has been in the World Series, they have stud players that perform at the highest level when you need them to. So, JT Realmuto, he's been to the World Series. He's been to multiple postseasons. I wouldn't mind him on my team catching for us next October. Another guy that I've seen as a free agent, and we had a viewer comment the other day. He talked about how we need more contact bats. I don't disagree with him completely. I think the Cubs do need more bat to ball skills. Well, he's the best bat to ball skill player in the league. He probably has the highest batting average of any player over the last 5 or 6 seasons. He has the most hits. He doesn't strike out ever. He doesn't necessarily walk either, but that's because he hits the baseball. You don't walk when you swing the bat. That's just plain and simple. And Luis Arraez might be a great plug-and-play, right? Kind of the Cubs go more to a traditional lineup, right? You have Luis Arraez lead off, Nico Hoerner bat second, or vice versa. Whoever the pitcher is, right? Lefty-righty, you can match up that way. Then you have Seiya, maybe another power hitter batting 3-4. PCA bats fifth, and kind of keep that continuity in the lineup. Because I think the Cubs were really dangerous when Pete Crow Armstrong was batting 7th. Which is crazy to think about. You don't want a guy who had 31 home runs batting 7th. But I think Luis Arraez would be a really, really fun piece to plug in. Now, the question is where would he play? Again, the Cubs don't have a lot of positions to fill, With Seiya probably going to right unless we re-sign Kyle Tucker. He can play second. He can play first. Otherwise, he might be DHing. And it's kind of going to be a little rotation between Bush, Arraez, and, Nico Hoerner as to who is going to be the DH that day. But when Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki or PCA needs a day off, who's going to spell them out there? So that's kind of where the Cubs need a little bit more of a utility guy. But if we're talking about a specific bat to the squad, I think Luis Arraez is a fantastic fit for this team. And we can plug him in the 1-2 spot, and run potential goes up even more, in my opinion, with this team. Again, these two guys that I named, I don't think the Cubs are going to do it. Just, kind of what they've done with their history. But they are free agents. I want to take a look at them, and I like to dream. And again, I like the fantasy idea of maybe adding them to the squad. All right, let's continue our series on grading the Cubs. I am going to go over Miguel Amaya's 2025 season. It was shortened, man. It was shortened with injuries. He had that big injury in May, and he got hurt immediately upon his 1 game back. So I'm going to give him a B, but as you see in the parentheses, A potential, because he was having a really, really good season. He had 96 at-bats. He was hitting .281. He was slugging .500. He had 4 home runs. Again, usually you get 600 at-bats, in a regular full Major League season, bare minimum. If you want to times these numbers by 6, that's roughly fair, in my opinion, right? Maybe home runs, it's closer to 20. Maybe the RBIs, it's closer to 100. But yeah, he's on pace to do a lot of damage for this club, okay? He was doing really, really well, and it just sucked to see him get hurt, and I hope he comes back healthy in 2025 or 2026 and can have a really, really good season, because I think next to Kyle Tucker, not in the lineup, but in terms of performance, he was a major catalyst to the success of this team. He was hitting with runners in scoring position. He was delivering in the clutch. That image you see right there was a game-tying home run against the Dodgers in that epic series win in early April. Miguel Amaya was a bigger part of this team than a lot of people remember because he didn't play that much during the total course of the season. But during those first few months, he was special, man, and he was a lot of fun to watch. That's why I'm kind of like, hey, I know I pitched JT Realmuto earlier in the show, but maybe Miguel Amaya, maybe the Cubs know something that we don't, and he's not necessarily going to return not as healthy, but like he might need a slow progression back. And a 1-year deal by Realmuto might allow Miguel Amaya to get more into shape and ready for 2027, 2028, and beyond. I'm not sure that's how that's going to work, but Miguel Amaya was having an A potential plus season. He was very special for this ball club, and it just sucked to see how it went down on that front. So, was reading an article, about the Cubs and their youth, because obviously they're going to be an integral part of this too. They fill up roster spots, right? Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara. We can't forget about Matt Shaw. PCA is obviously still very, very young on this team. We have to remember that these guys are going to be probably driving decisions for at least this offseason, right? It's tough to say, hey, I want to replace Kyle Tucker, go out and sign someone, because we also have to remember that we have Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara. My only problem is I can't expect these two guys combined to fill what Kyle Tucker did by himself. And I know Kyle Tucker did not have the season we all wanted him to have as a Cub. But we have to remember those first 2 months. When he was right, when he was healthy, we had one of the best records in baseball. We had one of the best offenses in baseball. And we were one of the scariest teams in baseball. We have to remember that. And it's just tough for me to say, yep, just throw Owen Casey out there, throw Kevin Alcantara out there. They are going to replace what Kyle Tucker did. And I just don't believe that. Maybe they could one day. I'm not sure if that's a possibility, though. So do the Cubs want to take a step back in 2026 to let these guys really, really develop? Or is this where we kind of package them together and make a trade for someone to fill that spot? Because, again, we are running out of roster spots. In 2026 specifically, but now again, right? Ian Happ becomes a free agent after this season. Nico Horner becomes a free agent. Seiya Suzuki becomes a free agent. So spots are going to open up, and these guys might plug in perfectly. But how do we continue their development for that time in this season? And that might be in AAA, I'm going to be honest with you. But, again, injuries happen. That's when they get called up. That's when they get their taste of the big leagues. And that's how that's going to work. So we have to remember the Cubs do have some youth on their team. They didn't trade any of that youth last year during the trade deadline. So I have a feeling that the Cubs are sticking with these guys. Owen Casey had a couple big moments, which you love to see from the kid. His first career home run that came against the Brewers. That was my favorite thing. His first hit came in Toronto. He is a really, really good player. Maybe. But I don't think he's going to be what we think he's going to be next year. That's my thought. It's, again, we have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you go and look at career numbers of these players, there are progressions, okay? Your first season is not your best season. Even your second season is not your best season. But once you get to seasons 3, 4, and 5, the experience starts to kick in. You kind of start to see the game a little bit differently. It slows down for you. You've seen all sorts of pitching, and that's when you strike as a hitter in the big league. So I think Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara have really good potential, but their time might be more 2028, 2029. I'm assuming 2027 is mostly out of the books, but again, we'll see how that all plays out. So sorry to bring up the lockout all so much during this episode, but again, it's a pivotal factor in the decision-making of the teams. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, they just don't want to spend money. Well, I wouldn't want to just blow my money if I know that half of a season is going to be wiped out either. That's a fair thought. And you have to understand that. So, again, I'm going to appreciate every single one of you who hop into the channel. Continue to share your thoughts. Hit that thumbs up hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. I will see you all in the next one. Talk to you soon.